Good evening, everyone. I am Deborah Price, JCRC Board Chair. On behalf of our entire board, I welcome you to this evening's JCRC Council meeting. This is a very special night when we would like to thank our outgoing board member and council at large members, and will elect a new slate of officers and board and at-large council members. It is also my last meeting as the JCRC Board Chair. Our JCRC Council is comprised of 35 membership-based Jewish organizations, up to 10 at-large members, and up to 18 board members. Our council currently has 59 members. In addition to the people in the room tonight, we also have many others joining myself via Zoom. A JCRC staff member is monitoring the chat, so if anyone on Zoom is having any challenges, please send a note in the chat. Let us start our meeting with a roll call to see who is with us tonight. I will share a list of who is here this evening based on registration. If I do not say your name or your organization, and give me just 1 minute here, it's my Zoom, here we go. Blocked what I was looking at here. Okay, if I don't say your name or your organization, please put your name or organization in the chat so that we know who is with us, or raise your hand if you're in the room. We do have 21 voting members, far more than that with us this evening, and so we will be able to take a vote later in the meeting. After we, so I'm going to go ahead and read the roll call right now. So board members are Sally Altman, Susan Block, Laura Horwitz, Joel Iskowich, Paul Kravitz, Julia Mendelow, Joe Peerless, myself, Deborah Price, David Rosenstock, Anna Shopson, Nancy Solomon-Deloge may be here, Bob Tucker, council at large, we have Tammy Arno, Jen Newmark, Lauren Rodriguez Goldstein, Dana Silverblatt, Rich Walkowitz, and then organizational representatives. You can see the names on the list. I'm just going to name the organization: ADL, AJC, Base Abraham, Hadassah, Sher Hadesh, Jewish Federation, Jewish War Veterans, Jewish Women International, Jews United for Justice, JCC, Kolrina, Matovu, Midwest Jewish Congress, NCJW STL, Sher Emeth, Sher Hadash, Temple Emmanuel, Temple Israel, and United Hebrew. Again, if we've missed anybody in the room, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. All right. After we hear some words of Torah, we will have a report of the JCRC nominating committee. We will hear from Dr. Ayala Hendin from Washington University, and then we will learn from our friends at AJC about their anti-Semitism training program. As always, our first order of business is to set a tone of learning and reflection. We are very—
Hey, Deborah.
Yes.
I've been trying to talk to you, but realized I was muted.
Oh,
That's only because I showed off and said that I had it under control tonight. There are a few other people in the room who are here, so let's go back to that. I want to recognize Neil Jaffe with J Street, and who else did Rabbi Howard Kaplansky with the St. Louis Rabbinical and Cantoral Association. Scott Schafferin is on the call. We do have several other guests on the call, but we want to make sure our voting organizational members have all been identified. So we have way more than quorum. I'm glad that I'm no longer muted. I am going to turn off the microphone. Now I'm going to invite Rabbi Kaplansky. You go, and I'll keep working on technology here.
Okay, and Karen, I see Karen Aresti is here with us as well. So we are very fortunate to have tonight Rabbi Howard Kaplansky, Rabbi Emeritus of United Hebrew Congregation, and a council member representing the St. Louis Rabbinical and Cantorial Association. He is a former past president of JCRC and a past chair of the Newmark Institute for Human Relations. Rabbi Kaplansky, thank you so very much for being with us this evening. I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay, so we're going to try this and see if it works.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You should be able to hold this and your face should be there. And then everybody on Zoom can see you. Haven't gotten there yet, Roy. I have to do it from over here. I'm running forward.
Okay. Good evening and thank you, Deborah. I'm here in person because people are always trying to mute me and it makes it a little bit harder to do that. But I want to kind of alert you beforehand. I have given a Dvar Torah before, and I feel that a Dvar Torah should be very brief. However, there is someone in the room who is upset that belief, and he's a past president of JCRC. His name is Joe Peerless, because the last time he told me I had 2.5 more minutes for the next Dvar Torah. But my favorite passage in the entire Bible is the first 7 verses of the book of Ecclesiastes. And you probably all know those words. If you know the Birds or Pete Seeger, for everything there's a season and a time for every experience under heaven. And there is an interesting lesson, keeping in mind those words, lesson that could be derived from the upcoming Torah portion. Actually, it's a double portion, Bahar, the top of the mountain, Bechukotai, and we can summarize that as the commandments, Bechukotai, the regulations. And it's about a particular point in the journey of the Israelites, their journey through being a Hebrew people, then an Israelite people, and eventually becoming Jews. And this Torah portion is also about timing, particular points of time and the line of the experience of the Jewish people. In this Torah portion, God speaks to Moses from the Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, with rules and regulations. We know them also, of course, as mitzvot. And all of these will prepare the people for the next step, really the next season in their lives, prepare them for the experiences, for the challenges that will confront them when they settle soon in their own land. These mitzvot did not exist for the people in their time of Egypt, a season of slavery. That was an experience, of course, lived by slaves, but now they were redeemed. They were free. It became a different season of their lives. But remembering, of course, is very important in our tradition. But remembering God's instructions as they were relayed by Moses to the people, they did move ahead into another season, a season of building a new society, not only a new nation, but a new society. And as the seasons in their lives, the lives of the entirety of the people, as those seasons unfolded, the challenges to the people seemed to become greater. And many preferred to remember the earlier seasons, how it was simpler when they were ruled by patriarchs and judges rather than kings. Seemed much easier then. But now with the king on his throne, they moved ahead and they became a great nation. And throughout the flow of the changing experiences and the unfolding seasons, the people have not only survived, our people has not only survived, we often say we are survivors. My personal opinion is we are thrivers. We as a people thrive as long as we remember, but we do not hold on to just the past. Israel Zangwill, a novelist and philosopher, made a very important statement in this regard. He said, the past is our cradle, not our prison. And that is certainly true for JCRC. We have grown as an organization from the context of 1938, before the existence of the State of Israel, before our very active involvement in interfaith activities. But we have remembered the fundamentals, the important things, but they have not held us back to that earlier time, but rather opened the door to moving ahead. And I'm going to apply this lesson to Deborah Price. Joe, have I hit the 2.5 minutes yet? Okay. To Deborah Price. She is retiring as chairman of our board. And I have to say, not in a patronizing way or anything, I'm very proud of her, because I remember seasons when she was a little girl in religious school at United Hebrew. And I think that she remembers her past, but her vision, as I've observed her moving through the seasons of her life, have always been forward. About mitzvah, an attorney, a wife, a very thoughtful and very effective leader of JCRC. She brings the path with her, but she applies lessons of the path to a vision forward. And now she will move on to new experiences, new seasons in her life. And I have to tell you about Joel, not presuming anything. Joel Iskowitz, same thing. I met him when he was a senior in high school in youth group. And I still have something against Joel. I told Rory about it. When we had conversations, he knew more than I did. So what is the lesson derived from the Torah portion? Remember the past. It's important to remember the past, but take it with you as you grow ahead, season after season, just as JCRC has done. I still have 17 seconds.
Rabbi Kaplansky, you always have 2.5 more minutes. So. Thank you. Thank you for your very kind words. And thank you for your Dvar Torah. And we'll continue to try to live up to the description that you gave. Thank you. And we are in good hands with Joel as well. So I would now, on that note, I would wish that I could invite Nancy Solomon Deloge to join us. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us tonight as chair of the nominating committee, but she has just worked so hard along with the committee to put together this slate. And I just want to congratulate her, not just on such a phenomenal job in that respect, but also as she is the current recipient of the Newmark Emerging Leader Award and will be honored as such at the Tzedek Awards coming this Thursday. So I'm going to go ahead and read the nominating committee report for Nancy. The proposed board slate officers are Joel Iskowitz as chair, Anna Shapson as vice chair, Julia Mendelow as secretary, Jane Rubin as treasurer, Nancy Solomon Deloge as Governance and Nominating Chair, Paul Sorensen as Programming Chair, David Rosenstock as Development Chair, and myself as Immediate Past Chair. Continuing board members will be Sally Altman, Susan Block, Laura Horwitz. The slate includes new board members as Karen Aresti, Shira Berkowitz, Michael Novak, Isaac Pollock, and Nikki Weinstein. Continuing members this is for the proposed council at large slate, the continuing members being Jen Newmark, Lauren Rodriguez Goldstein, Dana Silverblatt, Patrick Thimangu, and Richard Walkowitz. And new council at large members, Hilla Ben Abraham, Emily Connie Flax, and Rana Lyons. And I will beg your grace if I have unintentionally mispronounced anybody's name, and I look forward to meeting those of you that I haven't met. So with that, that is the slate. And the JCRC board has directed me to present this nominating committee report and to ask for council approval. So are there any questions? And I will rely on Cheryl to help with anyone that has questions in the room. And if you have questions on Zoom, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any questions. So with that, I will ask if there is a motion to adopt the nominating committee report.
I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, thank you. Sherry Schuman has moved the adoption of the nominating committee report.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there a second?
Rabbi Kaplansky has made a second to the motion.
Wonderful, thank you. So please remember that each organization has only one vote. If you are in the room, please raise your hand high so that your vote can be counted. If you are on Zoom, there will be a poll that now appears on your screen. Please respond to the poll. So all in favor of adopting the nominating committee report as presented, please raise your hand.
Okay, and I got to make sure my voting members are voting. Jen can vote. Okay. And the poll, no one is answering the poll.
I just answered the poll.
Okay, so people on Zoom, you should have a question in front of you and you should be able to answer it unless I've done something wrong.
Cheryl, can you see that mine has, yeah, I think some of us have already answered the poll. It looks like most of us.
Okay, share results. Okay, well, that worked. So
we should ask
go ahead and ask the second question.
Yeah, are there any opposed to adopting it? And again, if you are online, please do so via the poll.
Deborah, it appears from both the online poll and the folks in the room that we have unanimously adopted the slate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so the nominating committee report is approved and we congratulate all of our new officers, board, and council members. I do want to take a moment and offer my special thanks to our outgoing council members. They are our outgoing board members. Who have worked tirelessly and as Rabbi Kaplansky alluded to, are the past and continue to inform our future of the JCRC. Past President Joe Peerless leaves us after 8 years on the board. Bob Tucker, 6 years, including the last 3 doing a tremendous job as treasurer. Dan Friedman, who has served as governance and nominating chair and as treasurer, Paul Kravitz, who has helped in numerous ways over his 6 years, and Pepe Finn, who has served a 2-year term. Thank you all so very much. I also want to give thanks to Tammy Arno, Jack Siegel, and Rebecca Waxman, who are completing their terms as council at large members. And I would like to extend a special thanks to Joel Iskowich, who has served as the JCRC vice chair for the past year and who was just elected as the board chair. I look forward to serving as the past chair on your executive committee, Joel. My many thanks to all of you for your incredible service to the JCRC. I would also like to introduce the incoming board and council members who are in the room or on Zoom. I'm going to list your names as I say your name if you're in the room, or if you're on Zoom, if you just want to give a little wave. Karen Aresti, Isaac Pollock, and Nikki Weinstein. We welcome you to the board. And Emily Fan, thank you for joining our council as a member at large. It is now my pleasure.
One second, Connie Flax is here in the room with us tonight, the Zoom room.
Excellent.
And Isaac Pollock as well. You said, Isaac, did we miss anybody? Because we miss any of our new folks who happen to join that I haven't seen. I think that's everyone, Deborah.
Thank you. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Some of you will remember Eli Rettig from Washington University. Professor Rettig held the position of Israel Institute postdoctoral research associate and teaching fellow in the Department of Jewish, Islamic, and Middle Eastern Studies. Professor Rettig left his post in 2021, and Professor Ayala, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ayala Hendin took it up in July 2022. Professor Hendin is a policy scholar with a particular interest in the intersection between socioeconomic and civic disparities. Her current research focuses on this intersection within diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in Israeli higher education. At Washington University, she's continuing her research on civic and socioeconomic stratification in Israeli society, and teaching courses in Arabs in Israel, citizenship, politics, and society, social policy in Israel, race, class, and ethnicity in Israel, and education in a divided society. Professor Hendin is going to share her background and interest with us and tell us about the unique Israel Institute position at Washington University. With that, thank you very much for being here, and I will turn it over to Professor Hendin.
And I want to make sure we can see you in this spot here, and then I'm going to highlight you. Host the spotlight your video. Would you like to join audio? No. You're just going to talk into there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm Ayala Hendin. As I was presented, I'm a Israel Institute Fellow at WashU. The more interesting piece about me that's not on my official CV is that I'm from a St. Louis family. I was born in St. Louis, but grew up in Israel. My father is a St. Louisan. My parents immigrated to Israel before I was born and were here for a few years. So it's been kind of like an interesting turn of events, getting a postdoc position at WashU and kind of being able to explore some of my interests that have to do with Israeli policy and society in another place that feels somewhat like home to me, even though I really have never lived here. So as was said, like, I feel like so much was said that I have to like refocus. I'm a policy and society scholar. Most of my work is on higher education policies in Israel. For the past 10 years, 12 years, Israel has been very invested in access and participation plans for Arabs, for ultra-Orthodox Jews, and for Jews of Ethiopian descent. And my research focuses on all of those groups, kind of looking at the perspective of the policymakers. What is making the policymakers interested in these populations? How is the policy framing these populations and how is that affecting not only their academic outcomes, but also their placing in society. So I like to kind of like differentiate between socioeconomics or education measures and civic measures, talking about how also when there's different efforts to improve the socioeconomic positioning, that doesn't necessarily mean that the efforts are aligned with the civic position of these groups. I think the Arab population is probably the most extreme example of that, but true to the other groups as well. I'll say that throughout my life, I've always had this tension like between the research world and policy. I feel like I've still not decided which one I'm more passionate about. I started off my career after getting a master's degree in public policy from Hebrew University, working in the Brookdale Institute that some of you may be familiar with in the JDC. It's the social policy institute of JDC that does a lot of evaluations, also of JDC programs, but also of government programs, and had a wonderful opportunity to evaluate and monitor the National Access and Participation Program for Arabs in higher education in that position. Took me a while to return to academia for a PhD. My PhD is from Ben Gurion. A semester into my PhD, I got a phone call from the staff of the then president of Israel, President Rivlin, who was the 10th president, saying that they're working on his flagship initiatives for his term and wanted to discuss higher education with me. Would I be willing to come in? It was this funny situation. They assumed that I was living in Beersheba because I was in Ben Gurion. They didn't know that I lived like a few blocks away from the president's house. So it was like this funny trying to coordinate. It wasn't Zoom at the time, it was Skype. And I'm like, really, do we need to do a Skype when I'm a 10-minute walk? I ended up coming in. This was in March 2016. A bit less than a year after Rivlin gave a speech that became known in the media as the Four Tribes speech. Rivlin spoke about Israeli society as being divided into what he called four tribes based on the Israeli school system. The school system is divided to secular schools, Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, and Arab, and set his goal for his presidency to create partnership between these groups. So I met with them to kind of like think through what that would mean in higher education. Higher education in Israel is a shared platform. Everyone is studying in the same institutions, even though they're coming in from segregated high schools. That evening, they called me and said, we want to have a flagship program in academia and want you to join and lead that program. So that was like a real surprise. I was just in the beginning of my PhD, was very happy with my job at Brookdale, was very confused by this. Felt like you don't say no when the president asks you to join the team. You don't say no when you're asked to put your research into like real practice, but also not at all what I was anticipating. So I think that we had like 3 days of his main strategic consultant kind of like coaching me about how I'm going to make this all work. And when you get called for the flag, you say yes. I think it was a Monday that we met, and by Thursday I was already working with the staff. And we have been very successful in launching an initiative that became known as Israeli Hope in Academia. Israeli Hope was the flagship program of the president that worked in a few different areas. The higher education initiative was successful in partnering with the Council for Higher Education in Israel. Higher education is pretty centralized. So the Council for Higher Education is kind of like a ministry that's in charge of allocation with autonomy to institutions, but is the like organizing government organization. So we have together created this program where institutions are getting pretty big budgets for diversity, equity, inclusion platform for programming with staff and faculty. It was the first time that Israeli institutions ever did anything with staff and faculty and not only with students. And that was just like a amazing experience of creating positions of diversity officers that did not exist in Israel before 2017. Today, all of the institutions have them. I just got an email from the Council for Higher Education today, since I left in 2021, a few months after Rivlin finished his term, to kind of give room to the new president to figure out what his flagship programs are, but have been working with the council a bit, consulting them on their policy, and just got the final policy document today about diversity continuing to be a priority in the next 6 years. So that's kind of like my life intertwined between research and policy. I think of myself as an activist as well, but also very committed to policy work. So kind of like trying to figure out, when is being an activist helpful, and when is it better to work through the amazing platforms that I have opportunity to work with. Very passionate about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, about the situation of asylum seekers, refugees in Israel. Understand myself as a Jerusalemite more than anything. And I think that's it. So, for a piece, and I'm very happy to be here and happy to continue the conversation with all of the St. Louis organizations.
Thank you so much, Professor Hendin. We look forward to learning with you in the future.
Deborah, we do have time for some questions if anyone wants to ask
Wonderful.
her any.
Yeah.
Come on back up. And I may have to repeat the question.
Again, if you're on Zoom, put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. If you can just introduce yourself, so I know who's. Oh, but go ahead.
Can you comment on what's going on now with diversity with the new government, and then of course some of these reforms that they want to do in terms of the Supreme Court, and if it will have impact on the educational system as well?
Okay, can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Julia Mendelo, and I'm on the board of JCRC.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to answer one by one, or should I? Okay. Academia has been it's been an interesting time where academia has kind of took an activist role in what's going on. Presidents of universities are leading marches of protests against the reform. Law professors are putting together opinions about each piece of the reform. All of the higher education institutions went on strike March 26th, which was a day that a lot of organizations and companies in Israel went on strike, kind of opposing the reform. So I think that that's been very interesting, whereas academia is always known as being liberal, progressive, more on an individual basis. This is the first time that I remember that the institutions are actually taking a stand. So that's a bit about how academia's involvement, also as experts, also as activists of leading protests, also speaking in all of the protests. Every Thursday, there's a mailing list that goes out with who are the different professors that are going to be speaking in each of the protests, which has been really interesting. Yesterday, for the first time, I saw someone from the B'Tzalel Art Academy posting something kind of like criticizing the lack of freedom of speech that's happening in institutions with all of this, with the leadership all taking such a clear stand against the reform, kind of like marginalizing those who feel that the reform is necessary, that feel like there's more lit. I've been giving a number of talks in the community about what's going on, and I'm going to continue giving talks. So I'm also, you're all welcome to come to them. But the way that I think of what's happening in Israel right now, is having three main layers. Okay, we have the judiciary reform. That's basically, if I had to sum it up, it's questioning the balance of power between the different branches of the government and feeling like the government and parliament should have should have more power than the judiciary system. Those opposing feel like it should be the opposite, that the judiciary system is necessary as a checks and balances for the government. I think of it a bit as the difference between just having a democracy and having a liberal democracy. Okay, so are we honoring the principle of majority rules as the number one principle? Or are we talking about majority rules together with some kind of checks and balances system that is protecting human rights, minorities, group rights, etc. I think that that's like what we're hearing a lot about, is the content of the of what's going on. To me, there's two more layers. There's the layer of the process. And no matter if you support the reform or do not support the reform, there's a lot of criticism about the way that it's being led. This reform was introduced 6 days after the inauguration of the current government. Okay, so it was introduced the first week of January, was not part of the election promises in any way. So it happened really, really fast. The current government, tell me if I'm speaking and late, if it's too long.
No, you're good.
Okay. The current government is built, the coalition has 4 parties in it. We have 2 ultra-Orthodox parties, 1 Zionist Orthodox party, and only 1 party that I would consider inclusive, that's a Likud, the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, that's not sectorial. Out of those parties, 3 of the party leaders have a complicated relationship personally with the judiciary system, have been incarcerated, have been or in ongoing processes with the courts. So that's the other layer, that no matter what you feel about the content, do you agree to the way that this is being done? And what do we think about huge systemic changes being done without wide agreement? The third layer that kind of goes back to your question about academia is what I like to think of through a populism lens. And we know this from other countries around the world too. Israel is never given as a classic example of populism, even though I think that it's a very helpful framework to understand what's going on right now. When we talk about populism, we're talking about elites versus the masses. We're talking about us versus them. So anyone that's been following news and protests may have heard talks about the Supreme Court judges, about academics, about Air Force pilots, okay, about high-tech industry. Those are all the classic elites in Israel. And the political discourse today is trying to kind of separate the elite versus the masses, make all of these elites seem very ivory tower, very not connected to the people. And it's kind of interesting to see how academia is fitting into that, being activist, dealing with diversity within the institutions, but also like still taking so that's some of my thoughts.
Professor Hendin, we do have a question in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't see who's in the room, so I don't want to cut anyone off, but I will read the question in the chat if that works. Karen Aresti has asked, curious to know if DEI education will be mandated at the higher education level, or if programs policies will end up being developed and implemented without educational mandates. I also want to just remind everyone that's on Zoom, if you can make sure you're muted, that would be great.
So I think that I need a bit of a clarification from whoever wrote that question. What do you mean by mandated?
Karen, do you want to mute yourself and clarify?
Somebody, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm curious in terms of your work on the higher education side, whether or not you see a point where DE&I work would be actually mandated as part of educational requirements.
Oh, okay.
I think there's just a tension between sort of broad, oh, we're in the DE&I business, and what is actually being asked of people to change hearts and minds.
Okay, so what's happening in Israel? I don't know if this is what you mean by mandated. But when I was talking about the email that I got from the council today, it's the guidelines for the budgeting for the next 6 years of the state. Okay, so there's always going to be academic freedom and freedom of speech in academia, but one of the ways of the system kind of organizing around values, principles, actions that are important is by budgeting. And once there's a huge national budget with clear guidelines, institutions are going to, for the most part, want to join in order to get those budgets. So what's happening in Israeli higher education really since 2010-11, we work on like 5-6 year budget cycles. So we've already had 2 cycles since 2010-11, and we're just starting the new cycle. There are huge specific budgets for Arabs, for ultra-Orthodox Jews, for Jews of Ethiopian descent. Okay, within the Arab population, there's a special budgets for the Bedouins of the Negev and for East Jerusalem residents who are not citizens but are residents of Israel. And when I say we usually talk about those budgets more as access and participation. The new guidelines are changing the framing and starting to talk about inclusive excellence, realizing that we need to work with graduate students and with faculty as well. But the other thing that's happening is that there's budgets for people to work on diversity. Okay, so there's budgets for diversity officers in the institutions. There's funding for workshops and learning sessions with staff and faculty. And we're going to start a new budget and with the new guidelines, talking about 2 ideas. One is belonging, that you're familiar with from the American context. Okay, how do we make all groups or all individuals feel at home in the institutions? But the other that's like more exciting to me and is really the one that Rivlin tried to encourage is talking about partnership. Is talking about what happens when a divided society meets for the first time in joint institutions, and what is a responsibility that we have in order to give students and faculty knowledge, skills, experiences that will allow them to work together, kind of like assuming that that is something basic that's needed for society to keep on developing and growing.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you so much for the questions. And thank you again, Professor Hendin. Really appreciate your time tonight. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on with the rest of our program. Thank you. JCRC board member Paul Kravitz wears many hats. In addition to the JCRC board, he is the board chair of the Maryville Hillel and the board chair of the St. Louis chapter of the American Jewish community. Paul, this should be American Jewish Committee. Paul, along with the AJC St. Louis's regional director, Nancy Lisker, and Sivia Calms, senior associate for communications and development, will now share information about their new anti-Semitism training program. Welcome to you all, and I will turn it over. Thank you.
I want to see if I can get you on the screen there. Let's see, are you there? Okay. Go ahead.
It's October. It's 2018. It's in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Squirrel Hill, Pennsylvania, the Tree of Life Synagogue. A lone gunman walks in and proceeds to shoot and kill 11 worshipers, the worst incident of anti-Semitic violence in the United States. Hello, My name is Paul Kravitz, and I am president of the board of St. Louis AJC. And that's how we start out our presentations that we have been giving to organizations for over a year in St. Louis to educate, to create awareness and understanding of anti-Semitism to predominantly non-Jewish organizations and audiences. We presented to mayors, we presented to university presidents, we presented to DEI teams, we presented to corporations, one corporation of which, a local Fortune 500 corporation, has offered us to the audience of their entire workforce virtually, as well as their headquarters in person here in St. Louis. The objective of these presentations is to hopefully, with this understanding, avoid anti-Semitic violence incidents like what occurred in Squirrel Hill. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is not a hotbed of anti-Semitism, neither is St. Louis, yet this event occurred in Pittsburgh and could occur here. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our executive director, Nancy Lisker, so that she can share with you the material that we have. We recognize that this is different than our normal presentations. It's obviously not a non-Jewish audience, yet there is an opportunity to see what and to hear what we are providing to these organizations. We also share some proprietary AJC research and the methods, the ideas that we have for how organizations can combat anti-Semitism within their schools. We presented to high schools locally, to principals, to superintendents of high schools as well. So with that, let me turn it over to Nancy. Thank you.
So I just need 1 second to set up some technology for Nancy. If this all works, Nancy, you should be able to, people should be able to see you there, and you can just flip right through using these buttons. These buttons. Okay. Perfect. Perfect.
These windows, so it's not, which is that, which mouse is that? No, it's for this computer.
Then it would be that mouse.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Lisker, and I'm the regional director as they presented me. I want to start by, first of all, thanking Deborah, whom I've known for a while, when she was an emerging leader on the board of AJC. And it's been wonderful, Deborah, to just see the things you've done and how many people you've touched through the various organizations you've been at, and especially at JCRC. And I wish you all the luck in the world as you continue your career in the Jewish world, of course, as the other very successful career you have in law and in the state. I also want to thank Rory for the invitation, and to Cheryl. It is also a very special opportunity to be presenting tonight. I know it's Cheryl's last formal meeting at JCRC. She's been a wonderful partner, and having worked with her is a real pleasure. She's always so calm and so helpful. And I know there's probably nervousness in her, but it's really been a pleasure to work with her, and she's a wonderful colleague, and a testament to that was the honor that she received by the community last month. But so it's a real pleasure to be with you. And the last thing is, I saw a piece last night from student to student. And again, it's a wonderful, wonderful tribute to your organization and what you've been doing in this fight that we're all in. fighting anti-Semitism. So a lot of things that we have to be and feel proud of in the community. So how do I, maybe with this one? Oh, there you go. Okay, there you go. So at the end of today, so this is a presentation that we make to corporations, to school districts, etc. Now, I'm going to go very fast at the very beginning because at the end, you know a lot of this information, and I'm going to go slower at the second part, which is the results of our survey. A little bit about AJC, for those of you who don't know, we are the oldest Jewish advocacy organization in the country. We were founded in 1906 by Russian Jews who escaped pogroms and arrived in New York and decided to form an organization that would not only defend the rights of Jews, but of other minorities. What's good for the Jews must be good for other minorities. And we worked in Capitol Hill at the United Nations defending Jews and other people of goodwill. We fight anti-Semitism, we ensure Israel's right to peace and security, and we promote pluralism. One defining characteristic of AJC, and I know of other Jewish organizations, but for us, it's a very, very important tenet, is our non-partisanship. And so that is non-negotiable, and everybody that works with us knows that. We're very strict about it, and we self-censor ourselves all the time. We have now 25 actually regional offices. The last 2 that we've opened, one is at the United Arab Emirates, and the other one is in San Diego, California. And we have overseas offices in Europe and in Africa, as I said, in Asia, and many partnerships. So when we start this presentation with people that are not Jewish, we tell them that Jews don't look white necessarily, that we are all kinds of, in colors, how we come, how we look. And we start by explaining what anti-Semitism is, because in a place like Missouri, it is very conceivable that people have never seen a Jew. This is not the East Coast or the West Coast. We talk about the ARA working definition. And we say that there are patterns of anti-Semitism when it's more prevalent during elections, during Jewish holidays, and when there are flare-ups of violence in the Middle East. The ARA definition, as many of you might know, comes with 11 examples that illustrate what anti-Semitism is. And we just compress them into 4 areas, which are hatred towards Jews, conspiracy theories and tropes, Holocaust denial or Holocaust comparisons, and inappropriately invoking the state of Israel. And then we like to make this graphic. And so, for hatred, we go back again to the tree of life. And then we have a lot of, this is the era of social media, and this is what people, especially people in college campuses, are confronting these days. Even things like Jews did 9/11, this is as recently as 2019 at the University of Tennessee as one of their very emblematic rocks that they have on campus, or, the slavery trope, which is very common, the real plague, and that's the flag of Israel. All of you are very familiar with these things. Now, when non-Jewish audiences see this, as you might imagine, many of them have never even seen this or seen this for the first time, so it's an eye-opener. We talk a lot about the role of influencers and the fact that, when you say something to 33 million followers before Kanye West was banned from Twitter, well, you're talking about 10% of the US population. So those numbers, as many followers as AJC may have, which we have many, but as many followers as the JCPA may have, or as the Jewish Federations of North America, we can never counter this. Sorry. And then we of course, zero in on St. Louis. We have had issues of anti-Semitism here. This was something that happened in Olivet, Missouri. These flyers were distributed during different points. One thing we point out about anti-Semitism is that Jews have been blamed both for being very wealthy, and being masters of the world, but also for being communists. So, it's the Jew as the elite, and also the Jew as the communist. So Jews are the perpetrators of, communism, or every aspect of immigration, or the abortion, the pro-choice agenda, or being groomers, like Disneyland, etc. This is another one. It's the same organization, the Goyim Defense League. And then we have these other examples that you may be familiar with, the man who called JCRC and was just arraigned, or the Goyim Defense League, which was the organization that issued the National Day of Hate in February of this year. And then we get into AJC's survey, which is in its 4th year. And it's a survey that we conducted with, plus minus 3.4% margin of error at the 90% confidence level. It's the largest survey of its kind, and it was done with both. That's why it's so unique. We interviewed both the general public and self-identified Jews. We have, it's a big survey, 1,000 respondents of the general public and 1,500 respondents in the Jewish side. This was done in October of 2022, and we've done it each October the 4 years prior. So when asked, to Jews what their status is, whether it's secure or less secure than last year, 41% in 2022 said that it's 41% said it's less secure. Now, compared to their answer in 2021, it's 10 percentage points higher. So they feel less secure. It's increased 10 percentage points, if you see in the red. 40% of American Jews say they have changed their attitude. So they are, wearing less and less things that identify them as Jews. They avoid places that, make them feel unsafe, and they avoid posting things online. But that's 40% of Jews in this country. American Jews report, a quarter of them report being the targets of an anti-Semitic incident. And you'll see these numbers become larger when you take the cohort of Jews that are younger, 18 to 29. Instead of only being a fourth of Jews reporting being a target, it's 36% amongst the younger cohort. And that is not a surprise, because on Jewish campuses, anti-Semitism is more prevalent. 9% amongst 18 to 29s feel being a victim of a physical attack. Instead of 20 is 30%, and instead of 13% is 19%. And then 2/3 of American Jews have seen an anti-Semitic content online or through any other kind of social media. Again, that jumps to 84% when you take a younger cohort. Now, this is, of course, again, not a huge, aha moment. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram are the platforms where Jews are seeing the anti-Semitism. I want to call your attention to the other social media or online platform, but that's 21%. And that's probably not the platforms that you and I are visiting, but if you have younger children or have heard of the 4chan and 8chan and all other forms of platforms, this is where the darker things come up. And these numbers go up again on not Facebook, because as we know, Facebook is less prevalent now amongst 18 to 29-year-olds, but all the others go up as you take the younger cohort of people. This was the first year that we asked the question about Jews in the workplace, and again, I mean, a third of American Jews, just feel less safe talking about their Judaism. They have trouble asking for time off during Jewish holidays. They avoid wearing things that will make them evident as Jews, and they avoid expressing views about Israel. A third of American Jews with a connection to college campuses, and that can be people that are professors or faculty, staff, or students. Again, it's the same thing. They have difficulty taking time off of class or asking to miss class because of a Jewish holiday, wearing things, or feeling just unsafe, plainly unsafe on college campuses. That's almost 20%. It's a high number. When we ask how much of a problem do you think, if at all, do you think anti-Semitism is in the United States? It says 89. My picture is there so you can't see it, but it's 9 out of 10 Jews think it's a problem. And when you ask, do you view the statement Israel has no right to exist? Well, at least we agree on this one. 9 out of 10 Jews think that Israel has no right to exist, is anti-Semitic. And actually, Americans also think, 90% of them think that this is anti-Semitic. So that is reassuring in a way. However, when you ask, do you view the statement, Jews control the media, is that anti-Semitic? Well, 90% of the Jews that we asked that thought it was anti-Semitic, but only 2/3 of US adults think it's anti-Semitic. Now, this can be read in many ways. When we made this presentation at a corporation, somebody, in all naivete, raised her hand and said, well, I actually don't think that's anti-Semitic. I think it's almost like a compliment. It's Jews control the media, Jews have power, power is a good thing. And yeah, for some people, maybe it means, Jews have a lot of power, but as we said, yeah, well, first of all, it's not a fact. Jews don't control the media. Secondly, that's how conspiracies start. If you start by saying Jews control the media, it ends up with Kanye West. Jews control the media, Jews bring all these ills to the world, and that's where it ends up. It then, from there, it becomes, Jews have these conspiracies to own the world and to control the government and, to instigate the government to get into wars, to defend Israel, et cetera, et cetera. So no, it is anti-Semitic, and people have to understand that this is a trope. We always tell people, about the Holocaust in the museum. There is proof that the more people know about the Holocaust, the more they are likely to know about anti-Semitism and to consider that it is a societal problem that we all need to solve together. Now, why does it matter? And that's where, we talk about why it is, the proverbial canary in the mine. We cannot normalize it. And, when they come after Jews, usually they are also coming after other people. We always give the example of the Great Replacement Theory, GRP, in that it was for example, one of the theories behind, for example, the shooter that went into the mostly Black supermarket in Buffalo, New York. That's what they found in his writings in his computer. The man went into that supermarket to kill Blacks, and he indeed killed Blacks. But basically, the theory says that Jews are the puppeteers who are going to replace whites with Blacks in the country. But how are they going to do it? The puppeteers are the Jews. And so, we tell people, you are here now. You've taken the first step. It's understanding, and it's raising awareness, and it's prevention. We brought you examples of our Translate Hate publication, which we can give around for people who want to have it. We give them the glossary. We ask them to understand, and this is a very, very important issue. There's the thing about Israel. And we always emphasize the fact that, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. I criticize Israel, you criticize Israel, but there is, denying Israel's right to exist, and blaming American Jews for what the government of Israel is anti-Semitic. I mean, I don't vote in the Israeli elections. And so therefore I cannot be blamed here, or my kid can't be attacked on campus for something that is foreign to him. Nonetheless, we have an attachment for the state of Israel, we talk about partnership and allyship. We talk about avoiding coalitions that demonize Israel, raising awareness. And that's all and more or less what this is about. So we welcome your questions if you have any, or your suggestions. But overall, it's very good to be here. So thank you. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. And I don't know if there was a microphone around, and I don't know if Lori has it.
Do you see any questions in the room,
I'm
Nancy?
just curious, there are a lot of organizations, both in our community and nationwide, that deal with anti-Semitism. How do you all complement one another or compete with one another?
We're really not in competition with anybody, the more the merrier. It's hard, we have this survey, and what we want, what AJC believes is that the best tool to, vanquish anti-Semitism, which we can never vanquish it completely, is to educate people. Hopefully, the more that people have access to the information, the better. AJC cannot reach everybody. I mean, even if we wanted to. There's ADL, there are other organizations, and the more the merrier. I mean, we're not in competition, nor do we want other organizations not to do this. We are hoping that everybody's giving factual information. I mean, everything here is factual, and it's based on our bank of information. But you cannot coordinate one source and then everybody doing the same and coordinating it. We are part, for example, of a national campaign. You've seen it. It's the blue square. AJC is a national participant on that campaign. But I have colleagues, we have 25 offices in the United States, and I have colleagues of mine doing the same that I'm doing here tonight, but we're doing it with corporations and in school districts. But you cannot, it's very complex to just coordinate every single Jewish organization in the country. Our hope is that all of us are working to disseminate the information.
Let me also respond that to Bob's question, which is a good one. In fact, tonight, the ADL has a presentation. Yes, sure. Okay. We welcome other organizations presenting to whatever audiences they wish how to combat anti-Semitism, raising awareness against anti-Semitism, because people like Kanye West and Kanye Irving have a much broader audience, despite the organizations like AJC and ADL. They have millions and millions of people that will drown out the few presentations that we make. And I was starting to say that ADL, Karen probably knows this, has a presentation tonight to Clayton schools on anti-Semitism. We have also met with the Clayton School DEI head and other schools. So I think all of these are additive, not competitive to one another, and are all pursuing a very worthwhile goal.
Any other questions?
I will go ahead. Oh, no question. I will only add one last thing, and this is really a plug. We can do our work better if people can suggest to us and help us get into places. That's actually how we've gotten to so many places. And that's, so if anybody in this room knows somebody or works somewhere, and it can be anything, it can be a hospital board, it can be, this is a non-threatening, we are non-partisan. We don't talk about Republicans or Democrats or, this is a non-partisan, non-combative. We're just giving facts. So if anybody here, we can give us our information. We can give your information, know somebody that you think would be worthwhile getting this information. That's the only thing we can really combat this. And as Paul said, it's additive. Other organizations are also doing worthwhile work. And that's really the only way that we will attempt at fighting this, because there are many more of them than there are Jews fighting this. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you, and Paul, for sharing the information with us tonight. The council members are going to receive a follow-up email with information about how to contact you if they would like to arrange for a training. And I do encourage everybody to think of organizations and places that could benefit from that. For our last presentation today, Cheryl Adelstein, JCRC's Deputy Director, is going to give an update on state advocacy as the Missouri General Assembly session ends. Cheryl.
Thanks, Deborah. So I'd love to give you a report and tell you everything that's happened and everything that we've accomplished. And I can't do that. One, because the session's not over. And two, because they haven't done anything except for make everybody crazy for 4 months. It is the last week. The mandated deadline for passing the budget was last Friday at 5 or 6 o'clock. They made it by an hour. Shenanigans like no one's ever seen before has been what's happening in Jefferson City. And for those of you, everyone in this room and on this call, do receive our advocacy alerts because you're part of our leadership. So if you take time to read those every week, you'll see that I feel like a broken record. I've been talking about the same things week after week after week. And it's because, and in some ways that's a good thing, because all the things that they're doing have been things that go against JCRC policy. And so here it is the last week. I did get an email today from our friends at Empower Missouri that several positive things that they had been working on passed related to postpartum care for women. There are something related to SNAP benefits. So a few little things got through today, which is terrific. Here are the things that we're watching, the things we've been working on and fighting against the whole session. I can spout out bill numbers, but I don't think that's particularly relevant. At this point, we've been fighting against an equity education, a bill that would talk about what you can teach in classrooms. That one appears to be on the back burner right now. We've been fighting against bills that discriminate against transgender youth in athletics and in gender affirming care. Those are in limbo right now as well, because the House and the Senate have different versions they don't agree on. The governor has basically said, if you guys don't pass a bill, we're going to have a special session, which is, so we're balancing what's better and what's worse. Is it better to pass a bill that at least we know what's in it and it's an awful bill, but we know what the awful is, versus going to a special session? Those bills are out there and haven't been decided upon yet. We're watching a bill that would allow guns everywhere on public transit and in houses of worship. So these bills have come through committee, and what happens at this point in the legislative session is what get referred to as Christmas tree bills. You have a public safety bill, you have an education bill, you have a criminal justice bill, and things just start getting glommed onto it. And what we hope is that so much stuff gets glommed onto it that they get bogged down and they don't get passed. But honestly, it's Monday. They just went into session tonight, and we have no idea what's going to happen. Oh, great. On what?
The anti-abortions. Oh, and they took the anti-abortion language out of the postpartum extension of Medicaid.
Oh, or Mike Moon. All right, I'm going to be nonpartisan here at my last meeting. The one thing that we are very worried about, and we've been fighting this for years, is the citizen initiative petition. Again, like a broken record, every advocacy alert I say to call. Without getting into too much of the behind the scenes, the House and the Senate passed different versions. They went to a conference committee. The conference committee report has been issued. The report is bad. The joint bill is bad. When you talk about misleading, I will read this to you. This would be a resolution that would go on the ballot. And the point of the resolution would be that things that are on this, that you get passed by citizen initiative petition, things like minimum wage and clean Missouri and Medicaid expansion and these things, they'd have to no longer be passed by a simple majority, 50%, like everything else in our country, but would be taken up to 57%. That's a compromise. It was supposed to be a lot higher, but here's where the real problem is. Here's the ballot language. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to allow only U.S. citizens to vote on initiatives? That's called a dog whistle. Restrict the legislature's power to propose constitutional amendments and undo laws approved by the voters. Again, they put this little tweak in the language that puts a little bit of limits on legislators, but they've stuck that right in the ballot language. Ensure disabled individuals have access to the ballot, and require that constitutional amendments pass by 57% majority statewide. How many people will read to the end of that ballot initiative? Okay, this is what we're coming down to, folks. And this is language that can't get questioned. If it gets passed by the legislature, this is the language that goes on the ballot. We will continue to fight this. I don't know whether the Dems will filibuster it or not. I'm sure they will. Last year, we lost a big one on voter ID, and I don't know whether we're going to survive this one either. So next Monday, those of you who read my advocacy alerts will get the final details. All these bills are so controversial that they'll be on the news as well. And I wish I could say there was a lot we could do this week, but it kind of is out of our hands. So I want to thank all of you for your advocacy, for those of you who pick up the phone, send the emails, make the phone calls, read what we write, and talk to other people about it. It does make a difference. We know it makes a difference. I also want to just take this opportunity, and that's why I put myself on the agenda instead of Anna, who is our amazing policy chair, and she could do this exactly the way I could, is to say thank you. This is my last JCRC council meeting. I'll be stepping down from this position at the end of July. It's been a real honor and privilege to do this work. I didn't know what I was doing when I got into it. Rory said, I'll give you a shot at this. And we tried to figure it out. And I feel really proud of what we've done and what we've built. And I'm really excited about what's coming next. On the call tonight, and I don't know whether you can spotlight him or not, Rory, is Rabbi Scott Shafran. He knows I'm going to do this to him if he's around. You can do it on my computer. You might be able to do it from there. I don't know. And Rabbi Shafran, as you all know, is coming on as the deputy director of the Jewish Community Relations Council. He will be responsible for helping with the council, running the council meetings. I'm happy to share with him all the tips of the trade here. I don't think I've got it down yet. I really don't. So welcome. And I wanted just to give you an opportunity to say hi to this this amazing group of people who come together 5 times a year to represent the Jewish community.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. That was such a beautiful introduction. And thank you all for allowing me to be here or inviting me in. I'm very excited to be also in July stepping into this position and taking up the amazing work that Cheryl has done these last many years. If you haven't had a chance, by the way, to sit with Cheryl and pick her brain, I suggest you do it because she knows more about everything than everyone. And it is fascinating to get to try and soak up some of her wisdom and experience. And I am also thrilled to be able to work with everyone who is a part of this council in addressing some of the big and small, important and weighty issues that are facing us here in St. Louis and throughout our community. And I look forward to getting to meet each one of you and hearing some of the reasons you chose to be involved in this wonderful organization.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot, Rabbi Shaffer. And we're really glad that you were able to join us tonight. And with,
Cheryl, I'm just going to jump in now.
okay.
Sorry. I just want to jump in because I want to just microphone, I guess. So I just want to jump in to just add, I know everybody here has benefited so much from the work that Cheryl has been doing. And in case it wasn't clear from Cheryl's report, this is not easy work. This has not been an easy time. I don't know that it's been easy years. And I think what's really at the core of what Cheryl has hacked in this work that isn't actually a big secret, but somehow seems hard for people to totally figure out is that the real recipe for success in this is showing up, meaning what you say, and doing what you deliver on. And that's what Cheryl does better than anybody that I've ever met. And I cannot tell you all the number of people who are in relationship with our Jewish community and with the JCRC and who have said to me, we're not doing a program unless the JCRC is there, because they know and they have said, if Cheryl's there, this is going to get done and this is going to be a success. And so we have just been so fortunate, Cheryl, that so much of the work that has been successful has been because people know that you mean what you say and you do what you say and you show up in a real way and you bring people along with you. And that is what we've always tried to do. And that's the model that you've led. So it's not about knowing what all the legislation means, even though Cheryl's figured a lot of that out. And it's not always about knowing what to do next, but it's about just saying, we're going to do this together and we're going to deliver on all of our promises. So this isn't the last we're going to see of Cheryl, mostly because we won't let it be, but we have just all been so grateful to you, Cheryl, and for everything that you've done to really transform this work for us and for our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you so much. I was going to say similar things and I could not say it better than that. So Cheryl, thank you for your tireless work. And we expect to continue to see you in a different capacity. So Rabbi Shafrin, welcome. We are excited and looking forward to you joining us in July. So I want to just ask at this point if anyone in the room or on Zoom would like to share any additional information or make any announcements. Again, if you have something, if you want to put your name in the chat, then we can call on you, or if there's anyone in the room, you can raise your hand and Cheryl can call on you in the room.
Not seeing any hands in the room, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So no announcements, except for I know you have some.
I have just a couple. I really hope to see many of you on Thursday evening at our annual Zedek Awards. As you know, we are honoring Dr. Arlene and Jeffrey Stiffman, Nancy Solomon Deloge, Marie Kenyon, Don Rubin, and introducing the first class of our inaugural Pluralism Awards. We do have a few seats remaining and we do not want costs to keep anyone from being with us. So if you would still like to attend, please see Cheryl after the meeting. Again, I want to thank all of our speakers this evening, Rabbi Kaplansky, Professor Hendin, Paul Kravitz, and Nancy Lisker from the AJC. Thank you all very much. And with that, our council is adjourned for the summer months, and we will see you again in September. Thank you and have a safe and wonderful summer.